Because years ago, Shaq was just so dominant in the paint, he could score at will on anybody. He was just so much bigger and more physical.
You're talking young Shaq, though.
I'm talking when he went to the Lakers, Shaq.
When he went to
the Lakers, when his first couple of years with the Lakers, it wasn't Kobe's team, it was Shaq's team, and Shaq dominated everything. I think you're going to see that at Dwight Howard because eventually he's going to wake up one morning and go, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, and I'm more athletic than anybody else on this court. So I'm just going to jam it right down their throats until they can't take it anymore. And they got to play Hack-a-Howard. Like they used to play Hack-a-Shaq, they're going to play Hack-a-Howard because that's going to be the only way to stop them.
I got to disagree with you on one thing. I'm not going to dispute that Dwight Howard is the best center in the league right now. He has to prove to me he's ever going to be in Shaq's class. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's not in the same breath as Shaquille O'Neal ever was.
Three-time defensive player of the year already.
Okay, that's great.
I think
that's all well and good. I'm sorry, he's not Shaq. He never will be. He doesn't dominate a game the way Shaq does.
I actually see what Mike's trying to say. Because the thing, when Shaq played, he had to go up against Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing. He had to play against really, really good centers, and yet he was still unstoppable.
No, when he played on Orlando, he wasn't unstoppable. He wasn't the best center in the league.
Yes, he was.
He played in Orlando.
He brought a team that had nothing but him and Anthony Hardaway,
which is more
and Nick Anderson,
which is more than what Dwight Howard.
The Knicks that should have gotten there.
They had B.J. Armstrong. They had a bunch of guys there. Believe it or not, you're not remembering. Dwight Howard had nobody, and everybody they brought in got hurt. Nelson got hurt. Freaking Turkoglu was never what he was supposed to be there. They didn't have anybody around Howard.
I was talking Shaq.
But let me ask you a question though.
I'm comparing Shaq in Orlando to Dwight Howard in Orlando. Dwight Howard couldn't be the player that Shaq was because Shaq had more around him. Shaq had more guys feeding him the ball, more guys making plays, more guys opening up things for him. Everybody focused on Howard in Orlando because he had nothing around him. Giving him a chance out here in L.A., he is going to shine in L.A. He is going to be awesome.
Can I ask you a question, though?
Yeah.
How was Penny Hardaway's career after Shaq left?
He got injured. You can't blame that on anything other than his knee injuries.
He was healthy for about a year and a half before the injuries. He still didn't wind up doing anything after Shaq. I get what you're saying on the injuries, and I'll give you that point. But even before that, Shaq made him. Shaq made Nick Anderson. Those guys never would have been anything without him. You bring up B.J. Armstrong. He had decent time over there, but he was at the tail end of his career. They were bringing
Scott. They had a bunch.
Dennis Scott wound up having the one.
I can name a bunch of guys off the top of my head, and I'm not even an Orlando fan.
Yeah, but I'm saying none of them would have been anything without Shaq. Shaq changed the defensive focus completely. Every team had to adjust everything they did to Shaq, and they wound up getting the table scraps after it. I'll always say Dwight Howard. The one year he was in the finals. And I can't remember who they wound up playing that year. I do apologize. But
Orlando played Dwight Howard when they played in the finals?
Yeah, they made the finals that
They
one
lost
year.
to the Lakers.
They lost to the Lakers. He didn't, as far as I'm concerned, he didn't wind up showing up that series. You can say what you want about Shaq, but the year that they went to the finals, he had to go up against Hakeem Olajuwon, who had the best season of his career that year. So I just think it's a little bit of a different situation, truthfully. If you look at the Lakers that year, they had Gasol. He was playing the power forward, so they weren't even really matching up that much. I just think it's a different situation.
Gasol's not really a center. He doesn't like to.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
He's not tough enough.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, though. So he can't even use the excuse that he was being guarded by Gasol the whole time because Gasol was playing the power forward position. Howard was playing the center position. And Bynum was still, if he was even around at that point, he was still coming into his own. He was still the erratic one. He wasn't the one putting up the 24 points, 24 rebounds that he was doing the last couple of years. So I just feel he's had opportunities to show that he belongs on that Shaq level, and I just don't think he's there. Do I think he's got a golden opportunity to go to that level? Absolutely. I just don't buy it out of Dwight Howard. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe I'm just putting everything that's gone on with him over the last year and a half ahead of that. He's not Shaq. He's a completely different person. I don't even.
I'm not saying he is Shaq. I'm saying he could be as dominant as Shaq. There's a difference. I'm not calling him Shaq. I'm saying when he comes into his own, centers in this league are few and far between.
Yeah.
You could say, Bynum's arguably the second best center in the league, and he's not even really in the same class as Dwight Howard, in my opinion.
Depends on what night, really. He's very erratic, but on the right night, he can play with Dwight Howard. Howard's
on any
more
given night,
consistent.
anybody can play.
Yeah,
I'm not
Howard's
gonna
more
argue.
consistent. I'll give you that. But Bynum's put up comparable stats.
What I'm saying is there are no centers in the league. There are guys that
You
are
can count 'em
power
on one
forward
hand.
centers. There are guys that are in
easily.
between centers. There are guys, even you look at Tim Duncan. He really came in as a power forward because Robinson was there.
He
and
is
now
a
he's
power
center.
forward
Yeah,
back now.
I actually completely agree with that. It looks like everybody sort of slid down a spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So, I mean,
and now
if
your
you
point
look at
guards
it-
are just freak athletes.
If you look at it and you say Howard's the only, Howard and Bynum are say the only two true centers that you could point out in the league right now, other than Roy Hibbert. I'll give Roy Hibbert some credit
There's
too.
Roy Hibbert, there's Marc Gasol, there's Tyson Chandler, there's a couple of
There's
those
a couple,
guys.
but there aren't many.
Well,
And
I'm a
but
big Gasol guy.
What I'm saying is
truthfully.
none of those other guys are in Dwight Howard's class. Dwight Howard has a chance to be dominant. He can dominate this NBA like Shaq dominated when he was with the Lakers and.
No, listen, I can agree with that. My whole thing was, I feel like we've been hearing the Shaq comparisons with Dwight Howard basically since he came into the league. And I just feel like he did have an opportunity to prove that year when he was in the championship finals. And I just don't feel he did. Now, maybe I'm jumping the gun on that. Maybe it was a little young. Maybe you're right. They didn't really have the right pieces around.
He's only 26 now.
He's
so
only-
what was he then? 22, 23?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you're
it's a
probably
couple
right
years
on
ago.
that. I can give you that.
All right.
But the fact is, it's going to be an adjustment to see how he plays. I think him being out the first month is going to wind up hurting him. It's going to take a while.
Well, look, bottom line is Shaq is Shaq and Dwight Howard is Dwight Howard. Shaq is retired, Dwight Howard is playing. And the most interesting thing is going to be, can Dwight Howard win a championship in Los Angeles like Shaquille O'Neal did? He did the same thing Shaq did in Orlando. He got to the finals and lost. So let's see if he can do what Shaq did in LA and win championships. Because no matter what you do, whatever you say, when Dwight Howard's career is said and done and you compare him with Shaq, the only bottom line question that's going to matter is, does he have rings like Shaq? That's all that's really going to matter. It's just like any other sport. Your championships are going to determine where you were placed in history of your sport. It's that simple.